And through your long journey in AI, spanning across 3 decades, how do you think that AI landscape in India has evolved in the country since the 1990s when you started?
Get attracted to AI. There is a kind of romanticism in the field. We would like to make the computer intelligent, maybe sometimes our friend, philosopher, and guide. And if we look at the research in computer science and engineering, we see the frontiers being pushed in two fronts. One is increasing the speed of computation, because you have to do large scientific computation, process massive amount of data, and deliver results in real time, in no time, in fact. Okay, so those are the problems which deal with the speed of computation. The other front in which the research push has happened is making the computers more and more intelligent. Now, these two questions are, of course, interlinked. We have found, as we proceeded in these research problems, we found that intelligent computation requires speed, because many of the problems are what are technically called NP hard and NP complete problems. So the nature of these problems is that as the input size or the problem size grows, the time taken also increases exponentially. So the problems dealing with making the machine more and more intelligent is replete with these kind of problems, which are inherently complex and take time. So intelligent computation requires speed. Similarly, it has been found that to speed up computation, we may have to use hacks and tricks and special knowledge of the problem, properties of the task at hand, which means exploiting intelligent factors. So this way, the two research questions have been synergistic with one another. So your question was about how have I seen AI evolve in this country, in the world, maybe. Yeah. So AI has often seen winters and summers. Okay, so there have been ups and downs very frequently in AI, and there is a beautiful paper by Professor Ken Church, The Pendulum Swings Back, where he very interestingly observes that these ups and downs have an interval of about 20 years. And these ups and downs coincide with what are called periodic return of rationalism and empiricism. So this is also given the name of model-driven AI and data-driven AI. So what happens is that researchers, academicians, researchers, industry, application-oriented engineers, scientists, they understand a problem, break it up into its elements, and create a model about how the problem should be solved. So this is a person's view of the world and the problem at hand. And this perforce is limited by the understanding of the person or the researcher himself or herself. It depends on their understanding of the problem. So, but there are always surprises, and there are corner cases, there are challenges beyond what an individual have been able to see. So that gives rise to solving the problem with data. So if we see the way AI field has evolved anywhere in the world, we see these, periodic transfer of emphasis from model-driven AI to data-driven AI, or rational AI to empiricist AI. So in India too, when we were students, we used to always wonder about how the machine could be made more intelligent, when the machine will be able to do, let's say, solve home applications, which home robots do today, understand language, produce language, understand the scene, draw pictures, write an essay, So all those which used to be, very distant in the horizon in the fiction are becoming realities. Many of them are actually happening all around us. We have chat bots which understand our communication, can synthesize sentences, can analyze our sentences, and so on. So since 1990, I would say that India's AI has definitely moved more and more towards a lot of machine learning and a lot of data. India is really the data haven. And we have all heard this statement, which is almost a cliche. Data is the new oil. And in India, there is no dearth of data. Okay, there is so much of diversity. All the three V's of velocity, variety, and volume are satisfied in the Indian condition. So when we were students, we were doing model-driven AI. These days, and India is not an exception, the AI has become very, very data and machine learning driven.
It is NLP, which has been your area of expertise.
Right.
It was also under your watch that the Center for Indian Language Technology, the CFILT lab, was established at IIT Bombay in 2000, and of course is still headed by you. And this is a foremost effort in the field of language technology. Now, this is a field of AI that is particularly relevant for India, given our cultural diversity and lingual multiplicity. So my question is twofold. A, how did you get interested in NLP?
Yeah.
And what can you explain for our viewers how the breakthroughs achieved at the lab are revolutionary in enabling and advancing the digitization of Indian languages?
That you asked this question. Now, when I go back and think about my own journey, I strongly remember that I always used to love language. Okay, and my grandfather was a very well-known Sanskrit scholar. My father was in love with the English language, and especially English dramatists, playwrights, literature writers. And I had a great teacher of English in my school. Sanskrit, I used to love this as a subject. I was good in Bengali also, my mother tongue. So language was always a very fascinating thing for me. And especially when I remember in class 3, I was suddenly very excited by the statement of one of my teachers that Pita in Sanskrit has equivalent in Latin as Pitar, I think, and in English it is father, right?
Okay.
And path in English corresponds to path in Sanskrit.
Yes.
So why these correspondences, So this was very fascinating for me and very exciting. And then I came to know that there is this language hierarchy. There are families of language, Indo-Aryan family, Dravidian family, Tibeto-Burman family in our own country. So during my engineering studies also, I never missed taking any language course. German, for example, I did 2 years of German in IIT Kharagpur. And used to be very fascinated by a lot of common words between German and English and Sanskrit. And there is a phenomenon in German language called compounding. In German, you form very long words with small words. And that corresponds to samas in Sanskrit, where again you form very long words. So languages have, underlying unifying framework in spite of their diversities, which make them very interesting. And anybody who grows up in India has to be, keenly aware of the linguistic diversity in the country. And I mentioned this point about data in India. Linguistic data is, again, in enormous amount in the country. Again, it satisfies the conditions of volume, velocity, and diversity. Okay, so so linguistic work in India is always very relevant and full of interesting challenges. Now, while doing computer science in IIT Kanpur, I was exposed to Professor Rajiv Sangal, Professor Vinit Chaitanya, Professor Harish Karnik, who were stalwarts of AI. And in particular, Professor Rajiv Sangal and Vinit Chaitanya, they were pushing the Indian language technology front, machine translation amongst Indian languages. And I remember when I wanted to decide on my master's project, I met Dr. Vinit Chaitanya and I said that I want to work on natural language processing. He said, here is a problem. You work on Sanskrit to Hindi machine translation. And that was not a popular topic at that time. And when I came back and told this to my students, my friends, they said, "Tujhe job kaise milega?" But I said, whatever it is, I'll follow my interest. And then I created a small machine translation system. And maybe my master's thesis is maybe the first thesis in machine translation amongst Indian languages, first master's thesis amongst Indian languages. Then, of course, during my PhD, I worked on very theoretical machine learning. This is called computational learning theory. So there was a nice combination of insights into natural language processing and machine learning, which has come very handy in today's world of machine learning driven natural language processing. So I have been always thinking about how to make computers understand language and generate language, like many NLP researchers all over the world. Yeah. Okay, I'm not an exception to that. But this particular question of what is language, what is the linguistic faculty, what cognitive processes underlie language faculty, and how to replicate them in the form of an algorithm on the computer is a key question which has remained with me always, and that has driven me. And I found that you can combine linguistics, probability, and coding to create very effective and useful systems in natural language processing. That has been the journey.
That we get a lot of these questions about people wanting to move to AI from other fields. They want to make a switch. So I think what you said about blending two very diverse interests, one in engineering, mathematics, AI, and the other one is languages. In languages, a very interesting combination for me because I'm someone who loves languages too. But I'm just curious: is it pertinent for someone who wants to get into NLP to have this innate love for language? I assume you can have other people on the team who can take care of it for you. I mean, is it a prerequisite? Can someone not enter into the field without that?
So, undertake any long journey, you must have some passion for that journey itself.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And the excitement and energy and passion in NLP comes really from linguistics. Okay. So language is so fascinating as a structure, as a framework, and we have to be very grateful to our creator for giving us this faculty, I would say. So so there are very mechanical components of language faculty. There are very routine activities. At the same time, there are extremely creative elements. We undertake day-to-day communication, but always we find opportunities of being creative with our communication scheme. Okay. Yeah. So, for example, we use humor, we use sarcasm,
yes,
we use metaphors. So all these are very creative abilities, building connections between two divergent elements. Yeah. So, so coming to your question about would somebody who doesn't have a training in linguistics, if the person has love for language, okay, even if not formal training, if the person has a flair for language,
right,
wonders at the mystery of language,
right,
then this individual can enter. But along with that, fascination for language, he or she must be respectful of probabilistic methods, mathematical modeling, linear algebra, matrix theory, which are very important tools for modeling linguistic phenomena.
Right.
And the individual also should have a lot of love for computation, coding, writing programs.
Then I assume that this creates a space for non-STEM people to enter into AI and contribute to the field as well.
Absolutely. Team in CFIELD, and also it was true in IIT Patna. The team size is typically 30 people typically at any point.
Yes, I read that.
And about 1/3 of this team would be humanities and social science graduates.
Yes.
Who are who have had training in sociology, philosophy, psychology, economics, and they will contribute immensely to our work on NLP.
Wow.
I just missed answering one of your questions, which was
yes. It was
important contributions coming from CFIELD.
Yes.
CFIELD. Yes. So this was established in 2000, as I said, and this was preceded by a grant which came from United Nations University in Tokyo. So they were involved in Universal Networking Language Project, which was a very ambitious project, because it wanted to link many languages of the world and cross the language barrier amongst languages. So that grant came to us, and we worked on integrating Hindi with that framework. IIT Bombay was the partner doing Hindi. Right. There was a university in Madrid doing Spanish, a place in Grenoble which was linking French, and so this was a very big international effort. Now we had that capability, and then Ministry of Information Technology at that time gave us a grant to work on Indian language technology. And we also got some money from CIIL Mysore for creating Hindi word. Ministry's money was there. We also got this money from CIIL Mysore. So, and then there were grants from DST, Department of Science and Technology. So we used all that money to create Indian language word nets, which is very important for Indian language technology. We worked on machine translation, linking Hindi, Marathi, and English. Being in Bombay, these three languages have been our focus always. Then we worked on morphological processor, parser, shallow parser for these languages. So the work has been continuing. So I would say the main contribution of CFLT to NLP has been creation of Indian language word nets, creation of neural machine translation systems involving English, Hindi, Marathi, and many other languages, of course, Dravidian languages, and Bengali, they were also involved. And then we also created a prototype Indian language search engine, which was released by the ministry in 2012, I believe. And then CFLT organized one of the largest NLP conferences in IIT Bombay. This was called Computational Linguistics Conference. It was held in 2012. That is the first time one of the two major NLP conferences, ACL being the other one, Cooling came to India. And we organized that. This was a huge exposure for students of AI, NLP, machine learning in the country. So we have been contributing regularly to AI, NLP.
For a lay person, or maybe very hard for them to actually understand how so much of this work that happens at the back end in the labs actually helps to enhance our own experience when we use technology and when we get all of these resources in our own vernacular languages. So this was this I'm sure is a great insight for people who didn't know so much. Yeah. Moving on to my next question, sir. Sir, IIT Patna was established in 2008, and you were the director from 2015 to 2020. Right. So do you want to reflect on the prominent AI research work that was conducted under your guidance at IIT Patna?
Yes, of IIT Patna. I already knew that there is a group there working on AI problems. In particular, I particularly was interested in the activities in natural language processing going on there. So Dr. Asif Iqbal, who is now Associate Professor in IIT Patna, and Dr. Sriparna Saha, they became my collaborators after I joined there. And while the activities were going on, I think my joining there and my association helped because the activities grew. grew and large projects were being conducted. The number of students also grew. I was able to teach with ASIF, NLP, and machine learning courses, collaborating with Shiparna Saha. And then also other faculty members, especially computer science and mathematics department there in IIT Patna, with whom I jointly guided students for joint projects. Now, IIT Patna is a young institute. You said that it was established in 2008. So the difference between old, well-established IITs and these young IITs is that the structures and processes are evolving in these new institutes, and they move faster also because of the small size. So in IIT Patna, I could do a lot of NLP work, which was based on problems in and around Bihar region. Okay, so so we could, for example, look at endangered languages, like languages with small number of people speaking that language, Bhojpuri, Maithili, Maghi, and so on. I was also interacting with the linguistics faculty there, Dr. Smriti Singh, Dr. Sweta Sinha, Dr. Priyanka Tripathi, who was also interacting for humanities and social science problems. So in IIT Patna, I think in the 5 years that I was there, the activities really grew quite a lot and became more intense. There were large projects coming from Ministry of Home Affairs. And while I was leaving, the Department of Science and Technology gave TIH, Technology Incubation Hub, which is a very large project. And this is being conducted in many IITs, large number of IITs, triple IT. And IIT Patna's part particularly was on speech, text, and video processing, multimodal machine learning driven artificial intelligence. And because of our strength in natural language processing there, that was the theme of the TIH research there. So very large projects were being conducted. They are coming also now. And my interaction with the group there
also repeatedly emphasized how he would like India to be a global powerhouse in AI. And as a member of many governmental committees on AI, such as the NITI Aayog's Advisory Committee on AI, you've been instrumental in shaping India's AI strategy as well. So what, according to you, should be our future course in our pursuit of AI global prominence?
Emphasizing on, again, natural language processing. So India is a multilingual country. There is a huge need for automatic machine translation, and it is government's priority also as a project. So we are also part of this mission mode project called Bahubhashak, which is speech-to-speech machine translation. And the goal here is that a speaker would speak in one language and the listener would get the communication in his or her own language. So one of the domains here is education. So the goal is that professors in premier institutes deliver their lectures in English. So this actually creates a language barrier.
Yes.
So students who are not really comfortable with English, this is a kind of barrier for them. So can we deliver these lectures real time in the language, native language of the student? So our part in IIT Bombay in Bahubhashak project is integrating Marathi. So the lectures which are delivered in English would be heard in Marathi. And we are in touch with Maharashtra Innovation Society, interacting with about 700 plus Indian engineering colleges in Maharashtra. One of the engineering colleges we have interacted quite deeply and engaged them quite well is the DKTE college in Ichalkaranji near Kolhapur. And we would like them to test our machine translation system, which converts English text into Marathi text, and see if the students are able to gain from the Marathi translation of this English educational material. Now, eventually, of course, the ultimate goal is to do speech-to-speech machine translation. This also very much aligns with the government's new education policy, where it is emphasized that education should be possible in one's own mother language. And many of us really are very keen to see that happen. Okay? People are most comfortable interacting in their own mother tongue, and content is best communicated and absorbed in one's own mother tongue. So first and foremost, emphasis should be on integrating all Indian languages in one common machine translation framework, so that education, business, economic activities, entertainment activities do not face any language barrier. So this is a very important need, and I think our honorable PM's messages often has that content, that we must solve the language barrier problem in the country, and we are doing quite a lot in that direction. Second, of course, is there is a big project we are doing for automation of radiology dictations. So in India, the demand supply situation with respect to radiologists is not really extremely convenient, I would say. It is said that for every 100,000 patients, there is one radiologist. The ratio is 1:100,000. And if you compare this with China, this ratio is 1:15,000. For USA, it is 1:10,000. So radiologists are extremely stressed, meeting the demands of looking at X-ray plates, giving dictations, giving diagnosis. So we are creating a system based on automatic speech recognition and natural language processing. This is with a company called ScribeTech, which has operations in UK and headquartered in Bombay. And we are creating this automatic speech recognition and NLP-based system, whereby a radiologist will look at the plate, X-ray plate, and say a few words about the impression, and the system will generate a report, complete report, with respect to this patient. So this would cut down the time spent by radiologists by about 1/5, okay, which will mean about 5 times productivity improvement for the radiologists. So there are such problems. This is only an example problem. There are such problems all over the country. They have one unifying theme, namely scale. Okay, the demand is huge, and you need automatic system. You need the help of AI to scale and solve that problem. So be it railways, be it airlines, insurance, e-commerce, everywhere the need for AI is very critical.
Very rightly explained. And these are projects which, when accomplished, are going to have a huge impact, especially the first point that you made about enabling the delivery of lectures in different languages in real time.
I would like to add that India is again really heaven for AI research. Mm-hmm. So the scale throws up many very interesting, challenging problems. Yeah. And while the problems are thrown open, yeah, the solution is also there, mainly because there is so much data.
Correct.
So you do not get that combination, that very exciting problems and the resources so that those problems can be solved. They exist together.
You have guided in your career more than 300 students directly for their PhD, master's, and undergraduate research. So what is your advice for AI students and researchers in India, many of who are our regular readers but haven't had the privilege of being under your direct guidance?
So I also love working with my students, and I believe it is a very synergistic relationship. Now, one thing I tell my students is be very respectful of the fundamentals. Foundations are so important. And these days there are large number of machine learning tools, deep learning tools, by which you can solve a problem quite easily without understanding the nitty-gritties, constraints, and factors that make the problem really challenging. So first and foremost is to have an insight into the problem you want to solve. Thoroughly dissect the problem and understand what it demands. Then have very strong foundation on mathematical techniques, on probability, on linear algebra, statistics, data science. And for the AI problem, for example, if it is NLP, have a very good grip on linguistics. If it is robotics, have a very good grip on physics, mechanics, kinetics. So understand the problem and gather mastery over everything that is needed to solve the problem. For that, if you have to read, let's say 150 documents when you're doing natural language processing on agreements, MOU, contracts, and you want to understand what is the nature of the contract, what is the nature of an agreement. If you're using NLP to solve judicial cases automatically, read the judgments which are openly available. Okay, so do that hard work, burn your fingers with the data. That's very important. If you're working on robotics, then work actually with the robot mechanisms. Okay, just do not do only theory and mathematical equation. Do hands-on with the robotic system. So burning the fingers with data, working with actual systems, having a strong foundation on mathematics, probability, and if it is NLP, then linguistics, and dissecting a problem, understanding its constraints is my main message to the students.
What would you advise all of those researchers who actually identified what they want to do, have done it well, have their research papers ready, but can't go the extra mile from having the paper published to actually seeing their project deployed? Sometimes there are gaps in that segment for the Indian ecosystem in particular at times. Is there any particular advice or any tips or any words of encouragement, anything of the sort that you would have to say to them?
For deploying a system and making an impact in the society and in people's life, technology is one component, very important component, no doubt, but still just one component of the whole ecosystem, I would say. You need to understand finance, you have to understand marketing, you have to understand the legal framework. So anybody wanting to take their work to a level where it impacts people's life and society should respect all these together, must have a holistic view. Okay, not only technology and science, but also finance, marketing, law. Take a complete view and have a strong will to succeed in making the impact.
That's a very important advice, I think. And with that, I want to thank you, sir, for taking out the time for speaking with us today. This is a very insightful conversation for anybody to hear. I'm sure our viewers would be glad to have this on the portal. So thank you so much.